how can we recognize them or is it our conscious, is it our subconscious, is it part of our soul, or how does it connect to us? Where can we look for it?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. And it's also a question that we've been speaking about all these years. Let me try to squeeze everything together. There is the will of Allah. There is the will of Allah. Can anyone be confused about the will of Allah? Why not? Because Allah has expressed His will through the Prophet ﷺ, and through the book of the Quran, and through those holy ones who are following and representing the Prophet up till the last day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the spirit. We're not going to go into technicality, spirit, soul, ruh, spirit, ruh. Okay? The ruh Allah has created, and the ruh, the spirit, it is in complete submission and agreement with Allah. Its will, it surrenders to the will of Allah. It follows Allah's will. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the ego, nafs, which is another being, to stand next to the spirit in our body. And the ego has a will too that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put. Allah has given it a will. But the ego's will is 100% opposite to what Allah's will is. If Allah says to the ego, come forward, it steps back. If Allah says to the ego, and He did, go to the right, it goes to the left. Complete opposite. But Allah has given the ego power and the will. Allah has a will. The Spirit's will is with Allah. And the Spirit is with Allah. Then there is the ego that is completely against to the will of Allah and against to the Spirit. Both they are now inside of us. This is just a covering. The situation now is that we're sent to Asfala Safilin, the lowest of the low. We're sent to this dunya, which is an enemy to man, enemy to the spirit. We've been sent in this dunya, and the body is filled with now desires. Not just physical, so many other kinds of desires. It's also an enemy. And in this world, Shaitan is also free to run around, to do whatever he wants to do, free. Allah has given Shaitan that power. And in this world too, in this dunya, in this asfala safilin, there is the ego that is completely worse than Shaitan. Then there is the spirit. So now, how do we know if an action that we do, is that the will of Allah or is that the will of the ego? Because the ego follows Shaitan. How do we know? Simple. You understand? I can say more. You're confused. Follow a guide. Because no one can be confused what is the will of Allah. And Allah speaks through the Prophet ﷺ, through the holy books, through prophets, through saints, through holy people, and sending things to your heart too at the same time. Because it may look as if we're surrounded by the enemies, but Allah is closer to us than our jugular vein, isn't it? And He is always speaking, sending things to us prophets are always speaking to us. The angels, they're sending things to us. But if the heart now is like that radio station that has a lot of static, there are a lot of channels there, but a lot of static, then you're in trouble. You get nothing from it. There is the heart, the sohbat and the zikr in association with holy people will help you to tune this radio. But so that you can tune to the stations, that is, the stations of ilahiyat, stations. Heavenly stations, not shaitanic stations. You need a master for that. You need a guide for that. You need someone who is an inheritor of the Prophet ﷺ, that although you can read the Quran, although things are coming to your heart, although you know the Sunnah and everything, you still need a living master, a living guide who is in that footsteps. Now to show you and to teach you slowly, not just an idea of what ego is, but to explain and to show that you watch and you observe and you learn the hundreds and thousands of the tricks and the traps of the ego. So it's very subtle. This is why it's spiritual, because it's very subtle now. When you detect the ego, you detect shirk. Because the ego declares lordship. Shaitan didn't. Ego declares lordship. In everything that it does, it declares lordship. So once you identify the ego, you identify the other ilahs to make your shahadat to become pure and clean. La ilaha illallah. It's not easy. Because Holy Prophet ﷺ says, hidden shirk, it is more difficult to detect than a black ant on a black rock crawling in the darkest part of the night. This is why the tariqats concentrating on this specialty is given to the Naqshbandi order. And those ones that are concentrating on this in these last days, very few. We are not teaching. Not you, not me. We are learning. We are saying and we are understanding certain things, and we are learning from our Shaykh, Sahibul Saif, who is teaching us this. So now, the believer always in a state of what? Checking himself. Once you're in that state of always checking yourself, then you'll always be in safety. Isn't it? You want to drive a car, you check everything. You'll always be in safety. You're looking. And to check, to take precautions, it is wajib, it is obligation. Then you trust in Allah, yes, of course. So now, when you're in the sohbat, you're in the company, not just to sit and to listen, but when you are going through your life, as a murid, then you're going to watch your actions every day. You're going to watch your actions when you've done them. You're going to watch the actions when you're about to do. And you're going to watch the actions as you are doing to see the balance. Because now, that's why they say, come to Dergah. It is important because the tajalli and the presence of your Shaykh is very strong now. Whatever that we're doing immediately comes to us. We're doing this. Will Shaykh Efendi like this or not? Simple. Shaykh Efendi like this or not? But if you cut yourself off and you say, I don't need a Shaykh, you can be in the Dergah. It's not going to change. If you don't have that connection to your Shaykh and you start doubting your Shaykh, or you say, this is not my Shaykh, then it's not going to do nothing for you. You can be in the Dergah. You can be inside the Kaaba. Nothing is going to work for you that time. That's it in a nutshell. Assalamu alaikum.